So now that you know the whole process of the beer, finally it's time for the tasting room. So let's go. Okay, great. Finally, Nino, thank you so much. I was waiting for this so long. I mean, finally we arrived at the tasting room.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah.
I will open first the Goldenberg. It's our first beer back in 1994.
Yeah.
And it was, at that moment, my favorite beers were three Trappist Abbey style beers. So that's why we called it an Abbey beer. And it's in Wevelgem, where I was born and grew up. It was an Abbey, the Goldenberg Abbey was existing until 1794. Napoleon closed it. Okay. And it was a Cistercian Abbey, so a Trappist Abbey. And we found out that it was the first place in Wevelgem where they made beer.
Yeah, I remember this beer. It's also nice. It has a really nice body. So it's really smoothy, and I think a lot of people will like it. Depends what your taste is, of course, but it's a very accessible beer. And if it's just the beginning of your beer tasting career, then this one will be the more accessible one.
The second beer is the XX Bitter. I think it's famous. It made the name for the brewery, and it's developed by my partner Guido de Vos. That's why I took him with me, because he showed me such a great brewing art by doing this. And he made it at home first, and I always said we have to bring this to the people. And it's a beer that has very high bitterness. It's 65 IBU.
Thank you.
And it's just Pilsner malt and two kind of hops. Brewer's Halt, who is a very nice, smooth sweetness, and then the Hallertau Mittelfrüh again for the aromas.
Cheers.
So people always ask me, is this an IPA? So I always say, we developed it because we like bitter beers. At the moment we developed this, we had no idea of what an IPA was. It was a term that in the 90s we were not familiar with. And yes, of course, if you look at it technically, it's an IPA. If you look at it in the way it's understood most of the time now, for the public, most of the time IPA is synonym with American interpretation of IPA. IPA was an English beer first and was developed also with European hops. This is a European version, more close to an English version of IPA than an American version. So next one is the Père Noel, and there's also for me an interesting story to Christmas beer. Christmas beer were very common, and if you go back, and old breweries had Christmas beer and go back to the 50s, 60s. And what, in my opinion, it has been developed because in the old times breweries were working only in the winter. Then they made a test brew with the hops that they normally use, and then they could see if it's too bitter or not bitter enough. And that's hop harvest is in September. They make the beer in September, so by end of November it's ready, and then they were selling it as a Christmas edition. And that's the origin of Christmas beer. So here we are at the barrel room, or the place where the foeders are, the wood fermenters. So you can see here big foeders, 55 hectoliter. You can see smaller barriques from 3 to 5 hectoliter. And what we do here, it's aging beer. Aging beer to give it his sourness. And with that we make just what they call blended beers, or versnijbieren. That is beer that is aged and then blended to make a new sort of cuvée. For example, Cuvée de Ranke is a blend of different beers, and also a Kriek beer is made the same way, with a stage in between on cherries. That's the only difference.
Okay, I'm curious.
So this just takes you a long time. It's like 18 months minimum to make this beer. Santé. And just smell on this beer. You can immediately smell the typical sourness and typical like lambic character.
Oh yeah.
So in big lines, it's just the same beer like this, but just with a stage from 6 months on cherries, on sour cherries.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you empty your glass, I can pour you some.
Cheers, Nino.
Santé.
Yeah, it's my first time I tried the beer, Kriek de Ranke.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next beer is the Saison de Dauphiny. We are here in Dauphiny since 2005. And we want to create also a beer. This is Hainaut province, so typical for Hainaut is Saison, and Saison is in fact a farmer's beer. It was beer that was made on farms for the labor on the fields, the working people on the fields that had right on 2 or 3 liter beer per day. So if you have 100 people working for you on the field and they need 3 liter of beer every day, you need a lot of beer. So some farms were developing beer just in the winter, making the beer with their own raw materials like barley and wheat and hops. And made it on the farm, and it's
and own use as well.
Yeah, and in fact, this is a should be a thirst quenching beer, not too high in alcohol, and you can give it a nice bitterness, or you can spice it. In our case, it's just a nice bitterness. It's not spiced. Next one is the Noir de Dauphiny. It's developed in 2009. It's the first time we made a dark beer, and it's made with 7 different malts.
Okay.
So it's another bitterness, but it has a lot of color. It has 100 EBC. If you look at EBC means color scale. Yeah. If you look at a EBC scale, it's an indication for color.
Stands for European Brewery Convention.
It's and what happens also, because this beer is not pasteurized, what happens is during the aging the beer becomes drier. Fermentation goes on, and there's more sugar. So you obtain after 6 months you obtain more alcohol, a little bit more alcohol, and the beer becomes drier. So I prefer it after 1 year, because then it's completely dry. And the hops come out much more again. Nice. So it's when it's very young, it's sweeter.
Yeah.
And you have people who like more the sweeter version. I like more the drier version.
Yeah. Okay. (2020) on the bottle. So
of course, on the bottle you always you have the year, because it's the year of the harvest. So this is a harvest beer, means this is brewed with hop from 2020, and its harvest is beginning of September. So we brew this beer only in the first week of September. It's the only possibility when the harvest is. Means we use some hops who are harvested and dried already for bitterness, and then we use also wet hop. Wet hop means hop who is undried. Normally in the harvest, after harvest, they have to dry the hops to be able to keep them. So here we're gonna harvest the hops, bring them immediately to the brewery. So they harvest in the evening, they come to the brewery, and by 11 o'clock in the morning they're in the cooking. And it's a beer that is less bitter than other beers, and it's much more aromatic, because the wet hops, the cones are still closed. When you dry it, they open. When they stay undried, they are closed, so they don't give the bitterness as much. They give you more aromas. Yeah. In contrary, what they often say in America, you have to drink this as fresh as possible. I don't agree. This needs at least because it's re-fermented, at least it needs 6 weeks to develop. So you need to drink this between 1st of December and let's say end of February. Then it's
nice.
It's the nicest period to drink it because then it's very floral. We were making these beers until 2010, and then the capacity of the brewery was filled up. So we could not make more. We could not develop new beers, and that's why we waited a very long time. Until somebody said to me, "Yeah, you were good in the old times, but you don't make new beers anymore." So I said, "Oh yeah." And then when we when we expanded the brewery. And we start in 2014, 15. We started to make new beers again.
But then you build extra capacity here in this.
Yeah, we were able to purchase a part of the building where we are now, and then we could expand also the capacity.
Nice. Okay. Oh. Yeah, great. We're still enjoying the hop harvest, as you can see. And so in the meantime, I took all the other beers that you launched in the last 5 years. And then I think I mean, we saw the brewery. You talked with passion about your whole story and how did you start it. And it's unbelievable. I'm so happy that I came here and I met you. Oh, wait, I forgot one thing actually. A small anecdote about the Back to Black, because I have to admit that this is one of my favorite beers as well, and only since 6 months ago. I was doing a brewery tour in Ghent, and we went to Minerswing, which is like close to the St. Jacob's Church in Ghent. And we went to the Minerswing and I asked the owner, okay, I need to have a lambic because this is part of my brewery tour. And then he was saying, no, I sold out. And he said, well, I have a very good alternative for you, and you should try this Back to Black. Accepted the offer.
The opportunity to taste that. Yeah.
So I said, okay, if this is a sour beer as well. And we tried it in a brewery tour, and then everybody was so convinced about the flavor, and me too. So from then I have to admit that this can taste much better even than a lot of lambic. So yeah, I must say that that I had a great time being here today in Dottigny.
Yeah.
And that I really want to thank you for your time, for your acting.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
And for
the acting was less, but
and for all the knowledge that you gave with us. Yeah. And so yeah, so thank you very much, and yeah, maybe see you again.
Yeah, see you.
See you
next time.